Welcome back. As we finally start to transition into the fall, a lot of doctors are getting ready for autumn illnesses like the flu to surge. But even as vaccines have traditionally been available to combat these diseases, a growing number of people haven't been getting them.
That's right. Now, it's a phenomenon called vaccine hesitancy. So joining us this morning to talk about it is Dr. Brian Curtis from OSF. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Of course. So what are some of the chief factors behind vaccine hesitancy?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is really just there's a lot of misinformation out there right now. You can't really go far without that. And then really kind of true information there is being, again, twisted or misrepresented. That's kind of the biggest piece. And so that then leads to fear and concerns, right? Because it's yourself or your child.
Sure.
And then we don't see the diseases that we're actually preventing with the vaccine. And so really those kind of three line up, and then people don't get the immunizations they need.
Right.
Now, if you choose not to get a vaccine, what type of impact could that have, would you say, Dr. Curtis?
Yeah, a lot of it is, we see growing pockets of that. And so people that don't get the vaccine, for the most part, are okay, but then you reach kind of a threshold, and then you have a population that's not vaccinated. Then you start seeing surges of illnesses like measles, right? That's been all over the news, all over the country. And then actually we're seeing another resurgence of pertussis, which is whooping cough, which can be, for an adult, it's just annoying, but for a child, it can actually be deadly.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we also talk about, especially with kids going back to school, some even already in school, they have to get their back to school vaccines. Some are even required. So how does that impact children going back to school when they either get their vaccines or don't want to get them at all?
Yeah, the big thing is there's going to be a population of children that cannot get the vaccines because of usually some health issue. And so then that becomes even more important to vaccinate the people around them than in order to protect them. And so that is why we have some of the mandatory vaccines. And, like polio used to be a really big deal. I mean, you go back and look at all the iron lungs and stuff like that, but now people have never seen that. And so again, it kind of, why do I need to vaccinate my child against polio? We've never seen that.
Right.
And so that is kind of the biggest concern, is trying to protect those people around you.
Well, what would you say to someone who's not interested or maybe afraid or hesitant to get the vaccine or vaccines? What would you say to get them to actually change their mind?
The biggest thing is, one, I have to own that conversation, right? I can't just say I don't have time for this. Well, just keep going. I think the biggest thing is finding out what is their concern? What is the driving factor behind their decision? And so a lot of it is, well, I just feel this way, but there's something driving it. And so really trying to get to the root cause, and then trying to address their concern of the root cause, and not being judgmental about it, saying, oh, you're a whack. You can't say that. I mean, you have to understand where people are coming from, because they actually have a true concern. And then you try to understand it and then educate.
Well, before we go, there also has been some talk about vaccine or changing vaccine policy coming even from the government. How are you able to tell us anything about that, and how that might affect us?
It's a lot of that's in the air, and a lot of people are blaming the Republicans for this. I mean, both sides of the aisle have to own this, because the pandemic has really driven this since, and both sides of the aisle own it, right? So one side said we'll never get the vaccine, because the other side created it, then they come in power, then they're like, well, everybody got to take the vaccine, then the other side said, we're not going to take it. And so both sides have to own this, but there is some concern coming down that, using tried and true scientific evidence rather than kind of associations, which is a lot of what's driving this. And the associations are like, we talk about, like, most people in car accidents wear seatbelts, so therefore seatbelts cause car accident. That's an association. That's not a causation. And so people look at autism in the MMR. There's an association of the timing, but it's not a cause. And that's our hope is that we're actually using scientific causality evidence and not just associations.
Absolutely. I think it's really important that you make sure you listen to the doctors and the scientists who have done all the research, because ultimately a normal citizen like me, I'm not going to be able to do the research that they can. So it's important to listen to people like Dr. Curtis here. So thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Have a great day.
That expert is important. We'll share all these details on our website, ciproud.com. Click on the WMBD This Morning tab under News.